How you doing, guys? This is the all-new Rubin Report. I am the fully upgraded Dave Rubin, and I am super excited this week. Yes, we are in an all-new studio. I am joining forces with the team at Riot News, and I have some Riot News people with me. Actually, the brains and the heart, in no particular order, of Riot News. I don't think that's in a particular order. I have Molly Swenson, Bryn Mooser with me. You guys were crazy enough to bring my little operation into the Riot fold, and I'm very excited. We built a set. I don't even know where to start here.
Looks good too.
Dude, you single-handedly, double-handedly with our man Stash, you guys put this thing together.
It's a work in progress. Dave, we're so happy to have you here. I mean, this is like a new page for Riot. We're launching a whole bunch of YouTube initiatives and a lot of great videos. So talk is an important part, and you know, you're our favorite talk show host, personality, YouTube star in the world. So to have you here on Riot is really exciting for us. And so we're happy to build this set.
One of the reasons I'm really excited to be working with you guys and being part of Riot is that you guys, it's not just about talk. I've been talking a lot for the last 2 years. It's a lot of talk. But what Riot's about is news and action. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we launched Riot to be the first news site that links every single story to an action that the reader can take. So it's what's going on in the world and what you can do about it. And that was our mandate. Every single piece of content has a way to get involved, either directly or thematically. And that's carried us through to here. I mean, we launched just 2.5 years ago and it was actually the day that Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast. So that was a very interesting moment to prove the model of news in action. And I think that, as you were saying, people do a lot of talking. There's a lot of content being generated. And what does that mean if there's nothing that you can do to act on it?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of why I felt like this was, we literally, like, I called you for coffee. Like, I was like, let's have coffee. And then 5 minutes later, we were like, let's do this. Because that's what I've been trying to do with this show. Not beat the news into people, but give them just enough so they can feel informed. And now that we're adding this other part to it,
I know, it was 2 weeks ago.
News does these things, you know, news inspires you, news moves you, news angers you. And I think what's, you know, why we built Riot is because there's been so much of that time where you have those emotions and then the story's over and you move on to the next story. And there's nothing you can do about it, you feel helpless. So we really are trying to build something here with Riot, and now you're an important part of that family and that journey of trying to say, here's what's going on in the world, here's what you can do about it. So we're so excited to have you. It's
All right,
be a good journey.
It is going to be a good journey. I hope that this is going to become some sort of antidote to the outrage. I'm really excited. You guys are going to be able to be part of exactly everything that we're doing here. It's really, really cool. Let us know what you think. What do you think of our new set? What do you think of these two? How am I doing? I'm out of my jacket, right? It's craziness. Let us know in the comments right down below. Thanks. People are going absolutely bonkers over Hillary Clinton's emails.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has come under fire after the New York Times reported on allegations that she skirted federal record-keeping laws by using her personal email account for her work communications as Secretary of State. Currently, the law requires that email correspondences to and from federal officials be archived in the event that they should become the subject of an investigation or congressional inquiry.
All right, so I'm conflicted about this story because I get it. You can't have a personal server, and when you're working for the State Department, you're supposed to use their email address and all that. So I get it. Whatever they did here was sort of shady. On the other hand, we live in this endless outrage machine constantly, and I feel like 2 days from now we'll have the next Bill Cosby story or the next Brian Williams story, and we're all going to forget about this. Where does this fall on your outrage-o-meter?
Very low. I mean, personally for me, email is like a source of anxiety. It's just other people's to-do list for me. So I feel for her that, like, she's trying to separate, I don't know, or not separate work, personal, it's fine. I just feel like if this is the worst thing everyone can come up with about Hillary pre-campaign or whatever it is, fine, let it be. Let's just forget about it.
I mean, they have been looking for, certainly you've had decades to work on Hillary Clinton, and you know, if Benghazi didn't stick, then it's this email thing. But also I just think that for me, I mean, it's, you know, this is a sort of a silly argument. Her personal emails must be archived. I mean, everybody reads every email anyway. We all know that from what, you know, Snowden released in the NSA. Right. Like, they're reading my emails right now. They're watching the show, hopefully. Yeah. And so I just think this idea that just because they didn't come through a certain place and they're not archived is crazy. But you see that coming from the State Department, where they're now, you know, saying that they're trying to find these emails too. So to me, like, there's something fishy in there because, you know, everything is archived somewhere, whether she's using a Gmail account or a Hotmail account or a State Department. So I don't know. I think there's a story here, but whether or not it's blown up to this proportion.
Right, so it's kind of funny when you factor in the Snowden stuff and the NSA stuff, it's like even if she was trying to do something shady, they probably couldn't have gotten away with something shady. So what do you make about the outrage part of this? Because that's one of the things I really want to focus on as we do this show, is just this 3-day news cycle thing. They say it's a 24-hour thing, but I find now things actually stick a little longer. It's like a 3-day thing where we're outraged, everyone's going crazy and tweeting about it, and then it disappears. This one's going to disappear pretty quick, right? And is it even too early to damage her anyway? If this was so damaging, wouldn't they have wanted to wait for another 8 months or something?
It's certainly not too damaging or certainly not too early to damage her. I think it could if it was like the Sony hack and you actually uncovered her talking some serious shit about something.
Right.
That could happen, right? And that may end up happening if she has to release these emails after this conflict. But for now, it's just the fact that they're not quite available isn't enough to be.
But I do think, to your point, when we're talking about what's important in the world right now, we're spending this time focusing on it. Meanwhile, you have ISIS smashing museums full of, priceless antiquities, and you've got the world warming up on this coast, and then there's blizzards on the East Coast. I mean, there's stuff that we can be talking about as a country that's probably a little more salient than the emails that she's sending. I just don't believe that those emails can disappear. I wish that I could delete emails personally, but I know that they live somewhere. So.
Right. So to that point, though, with this distraction machine that's going on, we are a news organization. Why is it that when people want to talk about the things like what's going on with ISIS, and I saw that video where they're destroying this priceless stuff, why don't we focus more on that and instead we focus on all this other distraction? Why is the media feeding it to us?
Well, it's like the important versus the interesting, right? I think that a lot of things are interesting to people, and that's sort of what drives the economy of news. If someone finds something interesting, then news reports on it.
Right.
Whereas the interesting stuff is what we should be reporting on and making it interesting enough that people want to read it and not the other way around.
Right. So a story like this is kind of...
When we report about this story, what we talk about is how people can get involved. There's a great nonprofit, Transparency, which we'll put a link to here. Mm-hmm. They work constantly with helping people have more transparency in their government. So for us, it's an opportunity where people have the choice. If you're outraged by this and you think it's crazy, well then support organizations that are working to find a solution. Yeah. If you're not, then go flip on to the next story.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so there is a link right down below. That's part of what we're going to do here. It's not just talk, it's action. But final thought on this. What this is partly making me think is that, why would anyone want to be a politician at this point, now knowing that we all grew up in this digital world? Anyone that's growing up younger than us now, everything they've ever done, every Snapchat and Cyberdust, that's a new one, and Whisper and all of them, it's all gonna be there. You gotta be out of your mind, right?
Well, that's the thing too, is you'd think at this point there have been enough case studies of people just being brought down by their digital history that we would be more cognizant of what we're putting online. And I think Snapchat was a bit of a response to that, right? Kids being like, oh, we should be worried about what's going on Twitter. Fuck you, we're just gonna use Snapchat instead, and you're not gonna have access to that.
Which of course they found out.
We found out we do.
Yeah.
But I think that you're gonna see either much more leniency moving forwards on whatever your digital footprint was when you were young and dumb, or you're just gonna see ways around that, right? Digital products being developed that actually do keep privacy private.
Yeah,
but I do think
privacy
that
private, she's a dreamer, huh?
She is. I think that conversation is important though, and when people, when you Snapchat comes out and says that everything disappears and then it gets released that it doesn't, people should hold them accountable, or Whisper, where it's the same thing, where you say this is a big secret and then you're selling that information to somebody else. You should hold those companies accountable, especially if you're building a whole product on secrecy.
But it's a whole other conversation about right to privacy, right? And does that even exist? And can legislation catch up with technology ever when it comes to that? I think that, frankly, right to privacy is a fallacy to a certain extent, and Hillary Clinton, of all people, should know that. So probably, if we do actually uncover something crazy in those emails, shame on her, she knew that this was a possibility.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we will.
Listen, do we have privacy? I don't know. We're doing this online, so we're putting this stuff out there publicly, but we have private lives too. Do we have any right to those private lives? What do you think? Is this Hillary thing gonna blow over, or is this gonna take her down? Let us know in the comments right down below. It is seriously expensive to be a human on planet Earth, but these 10 cities take it to a whole new level.
Think your cost of living is high? You should try living in one of these cities. The list of the 10 most expensive cities includes Paris, Oslo, Zurich, Sydney, Melbourne, Geneva, Copenhagen, Hong Kong, Seoul, New York, and Singapore taking the top spot. The Worldwide Cost of Living Report compares 133 cities, with New York City set as the standard base for the study. According to the report, a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, and a pack of cigarettes in Singapore will set a customer back $39.11.
All right, so we all lived in New York City at different times in our lives. Was cost one of the reasons you got the hell out of there?
I don't know. Back when I lived in New York City, it was cheap. It was like it wasn't so
when
crazy.
was that? The 50s? What are you talking about?
I lived there in 2003, I guess, when you could still live in Manhattan, but you can't live in Manhattan anymore. I mean, that's just out of the question. You can't even live in Williamsburg anymore, and that's out of the question. And now people are just moving further and further out. I'm upset that our own Los Angeles didn't even make that list.
Yeah. So speaking of Los Angeles, you're happy.
That it didn't make the most expensive cities to live
It
list?
seems like a really expensive city here.
Oh.
Well, I lived in New York my entire life, New York City the last like 10 years or so, and I moved to LA 2 years ago. And I still, when I go to the supermarket or when I just buy anything or gas, whatever it is, I still can't believe how cheap it is here. And I know it's not really cheap, but that's just because New York is bonkers.
So when I lived in New York, I was couch surfing, living in bunk beds, and like eating pizza every day. So I was spending no money. I was an unpaid intern. And being a girl, I'm not gonna lie, it's much easier to get things for free.
Yeah, but that's not a sustainable sort of lifestyle plan.
No, it just means like you can go out and like drinks are bought, or you can go out and food is bought. I'm not talking about like turning tricks. I'm just saying
we can't go out and get drinks bought for us?
Yeah,
Come
we
on
have
now.
people buy us dinner all the time.
I've bought Bryn drinks before.
Yeah, and vice versa.
And he's bought drinks for me. So.
But this is not a sustainable way that people can live their life of just, this is what probably hustlers do and like criminals do. No, I'm just saying that you can't sort of compare the lifestyle of somebody else.
The point is she thrived in New York City,
Yes,
I think
she
is the
did.
point that you were trying to make.
Well, I had a great time and I didn't end up leaving because it was too expensive. I had opportunities elsewhere. It was more like this city is so exciting and there are ways to get by that I found where you weren't spending a ton of money. But I also imagine that if you are making a living or raising a family or doing anything like that where you have to be spending money and not sleeping on couches, then
I think the problem with these places happens when, like in New York, where everybody moved out of the city and then everybody moved out of Williamsburg and further, you just lose the core of who your artists are, who at least could afford to live there in the first place. What makes the top of the list? What was the top? Singapore?
Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah. Are
Stay
we
out
going
of
to Singapore?
Singapore.
Can we take the show on the road to Singapore? Maybe see what's going on in Singapore?
I think we should try to find that out.
Did any of those cities shock you? I mean, Paris, obviously, like a bunch of them, they seem Zurich, like these seem like expensive places to live.
it was interesting to me that so many of them were in Asia, where at the same time you have some of the most poverty also in the entire world, and often like within the same city itself, right? I mean, we were in Port-au-Prince a couple of weeks ago in Cité Soleil, which is the poorest neighborhood essentially in the Western Hemisphere. And this idea that you can live there, and everyone does, off of an average of what, $300 a month, and like people are dancing and people are happy, and you go to New York and you're in the subway and people are pissed and just fucking depressed. Like it just goes to show that how much you're making and where you're living and all that is so relative.
You beat me to my final question, the correlation. Do you think so? You guys think there's no correlation? Because I agree with that. Even I went back to New York a couple weeks ago, and that subway thing, you see these miserable people, and then it gets on you. You actually feel it versus you live in some other cities. I mean, there's plenty of people that live on beaches. They're pretty happy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have as much money.
It may also have to do with the proximity to wealth that makes you consider your situation as poor. You know, and we were talking about this too, this idea of if you don't know that you don't have much because there's no relative comparison to someone who does have a lot, you can maybe be happier than if you're in a city like Singapore or Zurich or Paris or New York, where there are the homeless and the extraordinarily wealthy living side by side, that on both ways, right? There's a sense of inequality and unfairness to that for people on both sides of it.
Yeah, but it's also in Port-au-Prince is just a great city, and you have all the freedoms in the world to do whatever you want. And then in Singapore, you can't even spit gum out on the street, you know. So that's it. You're not going to find the happiest people there. That's for sure.
So final thought to your point, how important is having that artist community, that sort of area where people can escape to create? That's a huge part of what's important about a city, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's the most important part, right? Like you have to have you have to have a place where people are creating and also paying homage to the city that they're living in. I mean, that's where you find the heart and soul of these places is always in the artist districts and very rarely in the financial districts. No offense. Or offense.
There's not a lot of creative people. They're creative financially, but that's about it. Anyway, what do you think? Do you guys live in any of these 10 cities? We want to know how you're surviving over there. Let us know in the comments right down below. Millennials are drinking less coffee, thus proving that I'm not a millennial.
It's tea time for U.S. millennials. According to a new YouGov survey, 42% of Americans under the age of 30 prefer to drink tea, with an identical 42% saying they prefer coffee. Further, 27% of millennials only drink tea. That's a huge difference from their parents and grandparents, with 70% of Americans over the age of 65 saying they prefer a damn fine cup of coffee.
All right, so first questions first. How caffeinated are you right this very second?
Not nearly enough. Yeah, not nearly enough.
Are you caffeine freaks? I know you're drinking coffee in the morning, but you're not nearly enough. Bryn, where does caffeine?
Molly won't let me drink coffee in the morning because she says I get too hyper and then I bounce off all the walls and I start writing a lot of notes.
You do have like a
whiteboard.
natural caffeine thing in your brain.
Yeah. But let me tell you, when I do have a coffee,
Yeah.
I have to sneak one and then I come in and then Molly's like, you drank a coffee, didn't you? And then he did. So right now I have no coffee and this is my normal sort of state.
So you can see what I'm
wish that I
saying.
had a
Yeah.
coffee. I
Now
would
we
take it,
are
or tea.
hitting, I think we're hitting 3 generations here because I'm technically Generation X. Now we were discussing before, you're probably Generation Y, right? Like that's, or you're millennial-ish, Y, but you're full on millennial. What's with you crazy kids getting off the caffeine? You're drinking more tea, that's what they're telling us.
Yeah, well, you guys didn't maybe grow up with like all of the different types of caffeine, ways you can get caffeinated. You have Red Bull, you have Rockstar, you have...
We didn't grow up so far away
Well,
from
no,
you. It wasn't
but you
just
know.
on a farm.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I think the
You guys
reality
only
is...
had milk or water, right?
The reality is I've never liked the taste of coffee. Coffee
Yeah.
has always been a means to an end for me, which is the caffeine part of it. So having other options that are equally effective to that end and that taste better, I'm just gonna go for, right? Tea tastes way better than coffee, and if I'm getting the same sort of caffeinated experience from it, then I'd much rather drink something I actually enjoy.
Well, I want to know what constitutes the tea part because I see a lot of people in America drinking those like giant Arizona tea 64-ounce thing. Does that count? Because that's just sugar.
That is pure
That's not tea.
concentrated evil.
Yeah, because I don't see a lot of people on the street drinking, even millennials, drinking like a fine cup of tea. I haven't seen that.
This isn't Downton Abbey.
It's not Downton Abbey, so I don't know, maybe that's happening.
No, but there's
I
like
don't
the
see it.
dirty hippie yerba mate crew, which is like the,
So
and then there's
do
the
you
like.
think that was
Oh,
born?
I drank a yerba mate this morning.
You did? You had a little. I saw
And it was
that.
given to me by one of the kids on the staff.
Yeah. Do you guys
Great.
think? Do you guys think that the tea thing with the millennials has something to do with? It's like a counterculture thing to Starbucks. Like Starbucks became so big, it's on literally every corner. They just opened one right over here. I'm guilty of going to Starbucks all the time too.
I'm from Seattle. It's a brand loyalty of mine. But
Right.
now when I go, I'll sometimes get coffee, sometimes get tea because honestly, the coffee there isn't great.
I like that bitter, like
You're into
painful.
it?
But I'm doing the grass-fed butter coconut oil coffee. You guys doing that?
Oh, that's great.
that is a
That's
new
amazing.
thing, yeah.
All right, so last thought on this, just sort of wider about millennials in general. I feel like millennials get a lot of shit. Like everyone, there's all these articles written constantly. Oh, millennials, it's
Yeah,
all it's
life
the
is
me,
so
me,
hard for
it's
us.
the selfie, and then there's that right, the woe is me kind of thing. But to me, I see young people, at least the people that I'm interacting with on Twitter and on this show, that they're incredibly connected. They're paying attention to what's out there. They have new access to news and all the things that we're trying to bring to them. Like I think they get a lot of shit. Do you agree?
Yeah, of course, but so do you old people. So
But we have this incredible demographic of mostly millennials on this overwhelming majority on Riot that are millennials, and like I've been so blown away and inspired, and I will be the first to defend the generation as being connected, being socially aware, being kind, compassionate, caring about the other people. I think being fully aware of things like bullying, rights. Body image things, all of those things are we really have people who are responding, and young people and millennials overwhelmingly who really want to do something and make a difference. So I say let them drink tea.
I don't think I can finish it up any cleaner than that. Are you a millennial? How caffeinated are you right now? Let us know in the comments right down below. Zombies are coming for us, and they want to eat our brains.
The military may have its own plan for what to do when the zombie apocalypse comes, because it will, but scientists have a different idea on how to survive. Their tip, head to the mountains. It would only take 1 day for densely populated areas to fall to zombies, and months before zombies even reach the northern mountain time zone. So maybe the gang on The Walking Dead had the right idea to head to the mountains in season 1.
All right, so I love this story because it takes like my post-apocalyptic zombie nightmare scenario and I watch Walking Dead and all that. And then it combines a little science. Scientists looked at this thing and so that, you could maybe survive a little bit longer if you were in the rural areas. But
Thank goodness.
how long would it take you to be eaten if a zombie apocalypse happened?
Oh my gosh.
You're definitely prepared. How
Yeah, I'm
prepared are you?
I'm really unprepared, especially if I'm wearing these shoes when it happens.
That is
I'm
not-
fucked.
That would be pretty good for like a stabbing in the eye. of a
That's true.
zombie.
That's true. If I had any karate skills, maybe. I think maybe I'm more prepared than Bryn was a couple months ago before you got your LASIK. That's part of why you got it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got LASIK because of zombies?
Somebody told me, because I wore glasses before sometimes, and then somebody said that you should get LASIK surgery in case there's a zombie attack, and you
it made
smash your
so much
glasses,
sense to him.
then you will be screwed. And so if I get LASIK now, I don't have to worry about having those glasses because it'd be like I'd be that person who'd be like, oh, I smashed my glasses, and then the
By the
zombies
way, that
would
should be
me.
LASIK's
Right.
new
So-
ad
So that
campaign.
really resonated with you.
Yeah, that resonates. So now I have LASIK and like I'm totally ready. And this office, the Riot office, we can do another show later on, but it is built as a fortress. It's fortified. I mean, you cannot
I'm
come
looking
in or
around.
out of
It's
this thing.
completely zombie-proof from what I can see.
Yeah.
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 So just
We
come
have
to the Riot
so many
office.
snacks too. We'd live for about 2 days.
Well,
before we start
don't tell
killing each other.
everybody how many snacks
It's
we
not
have.
important where we are. What do you guys make? What do you guys make of the obsession with post-apocalyptic stuff? I love it. Like I love talking about robots coming to get us and zombies coming to get us and all this stuff. What do you think the human fascination with like our own destruction is all about?
Well, you're into this like whole AI kick and like how we're probably already in a computer simulation.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
all
like that.
if
We'll
the
have
apocalypse
that.
has happened.
I think
according
we'll
to Bryn.
save that for another show. My
Yeah,
own
yeah,
sort
let's
of.
not
But
end
I
the
think
world.
that people are, because Molly always kicks me under the table when I start talking about AI. But I think that people always want to know how they're going to die, right? And this is the way that you can do it: is to be obsessed. Right? Is it going to be an asteroid, or is it going to be computers, or is it going to be zombies? So
Do either of you have any hunches about how you're gonna die?
I don't know. I just hope it's not on this show.
We would get a lot of
alien
views though. I'm just
invasion.
saying.
Alien invasion.
I feel like Alien Invasion would be a good one.
Good.
Yeah. What about you?
I know for certain it's not in a plane crash, which is the only reason I don't like get terrified every time I hop on a plane. But no, I think it's gonna be old age.
Old
I think
age.
It's gonna like
That-
slowly croak.
That's sort of how you want to do it. My final thought on this: how prepared are you guys for an actual disaster? Let's pretend the zombies and the aliens aren't coming.
Wow.
But do you factor that into your life? Like I'm big on I like having a lot of water at
Yeah.
my place, and I have a shitload of tuna. Like if it goes down, I'm gonna die of mercury poisoning. That's how it's gonna take me out.
I think about earthquakes all the time. Being in Southern California, I'll be like lying in bed and I'll be like, if an earthquake happened right now, which doorway would I run to? And like, was the training I received in elementary school sufficient to survive it?
The answer is no to that.
Probably
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But I really just think about like surviving the initial shock of that and not really what I'm going to do after. I feel like I'm self-sufficient and I'd figure it out, but maybe I should be thinking more about
Yeah.
water and
We have
stockpiles of food.
We have we have our motorcycle downstairs, to be honest, which is like also the way you get out of the city if there's an earthquake or something. So we're prepared.
I like how you've prepared this place for zombies and also a quick escape.
Yeah,
With one motorcycle. There's about 30 of us
There's
here.
a bottle of whiskey somewhere too, which is really all
It's
you
also
need.
part of why we moved the office away from the beach is in case of a tsunami. So now we're a couple miles off. Last
We're-
place we would have been
We're
screwed.
ready.
Are you in a zombie-proof bunker like us? Do you have your whiskey and motorcycle ready? Let us know in the comments right down below. Gay people are soon going to be able to reproduce without members of the opposite sex. What's that sound? That's Rick Santorum's head exploding.
Same-sex couples may soon be able to have children that are genetically related to both parents. Dr. Jacob Hanna discovered that it is entirely possible to use skin stem cells from two adults to make a human egg and human sperm cells. The team believes same-sex couples could seek this treatment in as little as 2 years. However, researchers did note that it will be easier for two males to produce a child, as it is more complex to use two women's cells due to the Y chromosome.
All right, so the big argument that you always hear from the anti-gay people is, well, gay can't be natural because they can't procreate. Well, here comes science. It's a beautiful thing, right?
Science.
Yeah, but they're not gonna accept science, right?
Yeah, no, they'll come up with something else.
Yeah.
Probably. No, this is such a fascinating thing and such an exciting thing for me. I geek out a little bit talking about like prenatal genetic modifications and what that means socially for us. There was a book that was required reading when I was incoming as a freshman, and it was called The Case Against Perfection, written by this guy, Michael Sandel, who's one of the foremost living philosophers. And he has this whole case that, we all want our kids to be as advantaged as possible. We pay for private schools, we pay for tutors, we pay for the best coaches. Why wouldn't we, if given the opportunity or availability of technology, prenatally choose genetics based on what's going to make them the most advantaged?
Yeah.
And the problem with that becomes that, maybe the society becomes even more unequal than it's ever been and all of that. But this is getting a little off track, but I feel like
No,
this is
I know you're going to where he wants to take it. So this is
Yeah.
like a cross between like Gattaca and
Sure.
A Brave New World, right?
Sure. I mean, I think that it's incredibly exciting to see these advances happen in science, and I think it's incredible that now families can really be complete in this way. It seems amazing. But to me, like the advances that are happening in science are happening so fast and so radically that really the sky is the limit for what is possible. I mean, when you think about like what Molly's talking about really genetically making your kids so that they can be better at sports or better at finance or be doctors or even rich or poor, there's genes for these things that they're determining. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be alive right now for what's possible. For me, I've just wanted the woolly mammoth to come back. So I feel like if you can do this, you can bring the mammoth back.
You want Jurassic Park, you want
Yeah.
Gattaca. We're going to figure it out.
Well, Jurassic World's coming this summer, so
Great, so I can wait this summer.
Maybe it's possible. But to your point, a lot of this though has to do with economics, and I think that's what people don't realize. That yes, we're going to have this superset of people, this 1% of people that will be able to afford all these things, and then they're just going to grow up with every advantage, and that's going to separate the 1% from the 99%, even more, right?
Potentially. And I think the more interesting question is what makes us so uncomfortable morally with the idea of being able to do that prenatally versus postnatally. Like there's no moral dilemma about, go sending your kid to private school for most people.
Right,
or
that's interesting.
getting them tutors when they're 2 years old on. But morally, we get into this interesting question of playing with, like, why is it more unacceptable to think about providing your kid with those advantages before they're born?
Right. I
Do
think
you
people
think you
just
would-
apply morals to the primordial stew of
Yeah,
an
I think it's,
embryo or something,
our
right?
friend has a company that's growing diamonds. They culture these diamonds, meaning they, grow them from a sliver of diamond, and they're impossible to tell a cultured diamond, a grown diamond from a real diamond. You cannot detect it or tell it with microscopes, with any sort of lasers, with anything. And to me, that's this incredibly fascinating argument where you say, what is the difference now? What is nature? What is grown in a laboratory? I think we're about to face it with all of this synthetic meat that's about to come out, where people are growing all of our next generation of hamburgers and hot dogs.
We will do many, many stories on that because I'm obsessed with that kind of stuff because I can't believe that people don't.
But
really
you're
understand.
about to ask these questions. Big ethical, big moral questions are starting to be coming to play. It's what Elon Musk just gave a lot of money to put some rules in place for AI because we're going to have to start governing things that we never knew we needed to govern in the past.
You knew he was going to bring it back to AI.
Oh, totally.
I'll do the
always.
whole show on AI.
So what would, if you had the option of picking between a set of 10 embryos for your child,
Yeah.
are there certain things that you would test for, make sure they don't have any developmental or physical
Right, so I guess
disabilities,
you-
or would you not want to know? Or would
If
you
I
want to
had
be
the
cautious?
money, if I had the money and the means
Yeah,
to do it, yeah.
you'd
If
do
I
it.
could make my kid a great athlete and like be able to dunk, I always
Yeah.
wanted to dunk and I can't dunk.
For a lot of us, we look at simple things like Alzheimer's, which is there's an easy way to detect the genetics for that, and I think that many of us would want to choose our child so they don't have Alzheimer's.
But I think there's a difference also between the active and the passive choosing, right? If you're just sorting out for things that are developmental problems
Right.
versus actively selecting for like athleticism or a certain eye color or hair color or maybe even sexual preference at some point, which gets into a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, all right, so then let's wrap this up with the sexual preference part of this. The gay thing happened pretty quick, and by that I mean like the rights thing, these last 5 years, are you shocked at how quickly this has happened? Like it's almost behind us, and I will be literally the happiest person on earth when it's behind us because gays just want equal rights, not bonus rights.
I think that it's been incredibly exciting just to see what's, it's like the old forest for the trees thing. I think it's been incredibly exciting to see all of our social advancements that we've had in the last 5 years. I mean, it's been amazing, whether it's gay rights, the right to marry, or whether it's been even loosening of marijuana and drug laws that you're seeing. I mean,
Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. Women.
Yeah, I mean, we have an extremely long way to go, but I think that we're making advances that we won't fully see until we're looking back at a 10-year period and go, wow, that was a time that this country and the world really stepped some leaps forward.
Yeah, and what does it say in the Bible? Something about gays being stoned, which not a problem because of the legalized weed. So you see, an app for rich people who only want to date rich people.
Tinder's new update is forcing people over 30 to shell out nearly $20 a month for its premium service. But that's likely chump change for the users of Luxy, a new premium dating app for rich people. Or as our spokesperson put it, it works a lot like Tinder, except this is Tinder minus the poor people. In order to join the app, men must make at least $250,000 a year and must be verified with tax records, while women just have to be attractive.
All right, so men have to be rich, women just have to be attractive. This feels really gross to me.
Yeah, viscerally, it really upsets me. But at the same time, if there's a market, there's a market, right? Already there exists the right stuff, which is one that the only reason I know it is my ex-boyfriend's dad used it only for Ivy Leaguers. There's one that's just for Harvard guys,
That
and one that's
sounds
just.
even grosser.
Oh yeah.
What is that? You just called out this guy. So.
Here's the thing: people care about different things in their mate, and like figure out what matters to you, and then find that. And if you can like sort through it really quickly, then who am I to be like go through a lot of other things?
Right.
Right.
Wow. So Molly's all for that.
Yeah, so I guess, but to her point, so this is just technology going to where people have needs, right? If guys that have a lot of money want to meet hot girls, well then, there's an app for that.
But you also know if you're that guy that you're just meeting girls who are only wanting to meet those rich guys anyway. So there is a self-selection process. But you know it's nice.
But how's
to
it
have
different than like J-Date or different than like the
farmer's
Christian?
friend? What's the farmer's friend? You know that farmer one?
Christian
There's one
mingle
just for
or-
farmers.
There's just one for farmers?
Yeah, it's called like farmer's friends or
It's
something.
like if
It's really
religion
bad, yeah.
matters to you, then you're gonna.
It's a lot of farmers and one very sore sheep, sorry.
Like anyway, people self-select on Tinder for other superficial, more superficial things. Even if they're tall, if they're white or black or whatever else, if they're fat or skinny, or like people self-select for that anyway. It's only a matter of time before like these very niche dating sites get even more niche and people like go for what they know they like.
Do you guys think we're like taking something very important, very tangible out of the love equation? Like where people used to maybe meet at a bar, not that that's the most loving place on earth, but when you would meet someone just on a walk, on a bike ride, and now it's like we have it all pre-selected right in front of us. Do you think we're actually losing something that's very human?
I mean, I think we're losing something from all social media is right now. I mean, all of our interactions and how we're hanging with our friends, it all happens on Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter. So yeah, I mean, we want everybody to go outside and meet each other and go to the library. Do kids go to the library anymore these days?
No.
Yeah.
I never understood the library. You're telling me you're just going to give me a book and just trust me that I'm going to bring it back.
They go to the library when they're reading books. I think that, I don't know that we're necessarily losing things. I think we're just looking for things in different places now, right? The friends that I have that are with people that they met online aren't in any less loving or fulfilling relationships than the ones who met in the real world. Yeah. I think that certainly things are changing. Whether or not normatively that's good or bad remains to be seen. But I don't think, I'm agnostic. I don't think that that it is wrong in and of itself to be finding someone online.
So it's sort of however you use it and incorporate it into your life. I'll go with that. Final thought on this. How important is your phone to your day-to-day life? Because almost every story that we've covered for the last 2 years is somehow always related back to this thing that we're walking around with. Like, how important is that thing to you?
I just had my phone. We were together in Haiti, and I had my phone stolen, and I had 2 days without having a phone, and it was some of the best days of my life. I loved it. So my phone is.
How often did you go to your pocket and?
I go all the time, and I now have a new rule where the phone isn't in my bedroom, where the phone doesn't exist in that place, so at least there's no first thing in the morning, last thing at night. But I have to set a lot of rules with my phone. It's always in my hand.
More boundaries than I have. My boyfriend.
What about you? Your phone is right there, so I know it's like sort of important.
I know, I'm like itching to check it.
Don't touch that thing.
My boyfriend makes a joke that as soon as they have phone implants for you, that I'm going to be the first customer of that because I'm always on it, according to him. But yeah, I am. I mean, I think there's this certainly a lack of separation between work and life, at least for us, right? Yeah. Because you're in the startup world and you're constantly feeling like your personal brand and identity is linked with this thing that you're building. And for us, in Riot's case, it's inextricable in a lot of ways. And so the idea that you're building the company from anywhere is really exciting, but it also means that maybe you're not experiencing everywhere.
Right.
The same
So
way.
you sort of gave us an excuse that we can be on our phones a lot. All right. Well, I want to thank Molly and Bryn not only for being the first guest on the Rubin Report, but for bringing me and making me home here at Riot. I'm extremely excited. So all the stories that we covered this week were all sourced from riot.org. You can see them in the links below, and that's where you can take the action. And we have a ton of stuff coming up for you guys. We got big celebrities. We're going to be going out in the field more. We're going to be bringing some interesting new people in here. Anything else that I might be forgetting?
There's going to be ways to take action.
And there's going to be a lot of ways to take
right
action.
from YouTube.
And also that final thought that you're going to bring us home on right now.
We're going to have birthday parties for everybody. on their
Birthday
birthdays.
parties for everybody. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll do it again next week.